Whispers in the shadows. It was a moonless night, the kind that breeds unsettling thoughts and tugs at the corners of imagination. The wind whispered through the ancient trees, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. A lone figure, Thomas, found himself walking down a desolate path that wound through the dense woods. The only company he had was the eerie rustling of leaves and the distant hoots of an owl. Thomas had heard rumors of the haunted woods, stories told around campfires and in hushed voices. But he was a skeptic, and he believed he could conquer his fears by confronting them head-on. Tonight was his test. As he delved deeper into the forest, the air grew heavy with an unshakable sense of foreboding. The darkness was nearly absolute, and the narrow path ahead seemed to narrow further with every step he took. Faint whispers seemed to dance just beyond his hearing, their words carried by the breeze, but never clear enough to decipher. A cold sweat began to trickle down Thomas's spine as the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. His flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own accord. Ignoring the chills crawling up his arms, he continued, determined to prove himself to the darkness. A distant rustling caught his attention. He shone his light in the direction of the sound, revealing nothing but the dense underbrush. A shiver ran down his spine as he felt eyes upon him, unseen but unmistakably present. He quickened his pace, the path now barely visible beneath his feet. As he walked, the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of unintelligible voices that seemed to echo in his mind. His heart raced, and he stumbled over a gnarled root, nearly falling to the ground. As he righted himself, he caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of his eye. He turned toward the source of the movement and found himself facing a dilapidated shack. The wooden structure leaned precariously to one side, its windows shattered and its door hanging askew. A guttural groan emanated from within, sending a wave of dread through Thomas. Summoning his courage, he cautiously approached the shack. The whispers had grown louder, a maddening symphony that seemed to mock his very presence. With trembling hands, he pushed open the creaking door, revealing an interior that was even more unsettling than the outside. The room was filled with shadows that seemed to writhe and twist, defying the laws of physics. A flickering candle stood in the center of the room, its feeble flame casting eerie shapes on the walls. As Thomas stepped further inside, the door slammed shut behind him, the sound reverberating like a death knell. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice quivering. No response came, only the relentless whispers that seemed to taunt and torment him. He tried to turn and flee, but the door refused to budge. Panic began to claw at his mind, threatening to consume him entirely. Then a voice emerged from the cacophony of whispers, a voice that sounded like a chorus of the damned. "You dared to enter our domain," it hissed, each word dripping with malevolence. "Now you shall bear witness to our torment." The shadows lunged toward him, wrapping around his limbs like icy tendrils. Thomas screamed, his voice mingling with the wails of the tormented souls that seemed to surround him. He fought against the darkness, but it was as if he was caught in a nightmare from which there was no escape. Hours later, the first light of dawn began to pierce the darkness of the woods. The shack stood empty, its malevolent presence dissipating with the night. The path, once obscured by shadows, now lay clear and inviting. The townspeople would later find Thomas's lifeless body sprawled on the forest floor, not far from the dilapidated shack. His face held an expression of sheer terror, as if he had glimpsed something beyond comprehension in his final moments. The woods would forever remain a place of dread, a reminder that some horrors are better left undisturbed. The whispers would continue to haunt the dreams of those who dared to remember, a chilling reminder that the darkness holds secrets that are better left buried in the shadows.